Okay. Uh, a very warm good afternoon to all of our listeners, and welcome to another exciting episode of the MoonShot Podcast, where we talk to awesome people doing awesome things in the world. Today, we have with us a very special guest, someone that I've known for a while. His name is Adriel. Adriel, I'm not gonna try and mention your last name. I'll let you do that because you can say it a lot better than I can, and I don't want to like mess it up. So I've known Adriel for a very long time. Adriel is a serial entrepreneur. He's a fitness advocate. He runs a very exciting company called G3X Fitness, which has a really cool tagline that stands for God Gym Grind. I think I've said it in the right order. But of course, Adriel, feel free to kind of keep me honest on whatever I'm saying. Adriel is based in Miami, Florida. His lives and content that he posts on TikTok and Insta are all very inspirational. They are, they have like a spiritual aspect to it. It's also very inspirational. It's very empowering kind of messages. I think that's part of the brand. And yeah, Adriel is an expert in marketing, expert in SEO, in all things online visibility, marketing, advertising, paid advertising, and a bunch of like other things as well. So Adriel is a full-on good guy and a great human. And Adriel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for the amazing intro, Rajiv, for sure. No, and I appreciate it. I'm super excited to be here. And honestly, thank you for having me as a guest. So I appreciate it. It means a lot.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I guess like, the first question, Adriel, is and also like in your answer to my question, please obviously, tell us about yourself and how you got started, but also if you can also tell us about the whole what was the secret superhero origin story behind G3X and how did you kind of come upon that?
Definitely, for sure, for sure. So, as Raji mentioned, and of course, I have the company here, G3X Fitness, located here in Miami, Florida. I started the company when I first launched the website back in February of 2024. So, let's say a year ago that we started. And effectively, the whole origination story, it's very like all connected. It's pretty cool how one thing led to the other, which led to like here with G3X Fitness. Ultimately, what eventually first it was started like going to the gym, right? It's just like something there that sparked me to start going to the gym, working on, getting, more fit, getting more in shape, building muscle, etc. It was initially used as like an outlet from some emotional, like typical heartbreak type situation that happened many years ago. So then like, using the gym kind of as your outlet, which eventually led to just me actually getting hooked to the gym. Once you started seeing my own progress in the gym, and so far I'm like, hey, I actually like this. Started getting deeper into it. Started posting content on just my own social medias. G3X didn't even exist back then, and then through that process, as like let's say my own form of healing, is where I came with this phrase of, let's say, God gym grind. So I've always had a Christian background, but of course, through different situations, sometimes you're not really focused on that relationship with God. You're just kind of like doing your own thing. Through that whole scenario that happened, I was like, hey, you know what? I really want to get myself more back into my focus, back into like aligning myself with my like spiritual journey, my faith. Like, and so that's where like the God gym grind came into place. Like, hey, let me put God first in each and every one of my decisions, be it in business, be it in personal relationships, be it in life. God first. I'm gonna be hitting the gym because the gym became a very crucial part of me at that time. And this was like, let's say 2, 3 years ago when it came to that. So like the gym became a very crucial part of my life. And the grind in the sense back in my old job, what I used to do, I was like a managing director of this company where I would do a lot of consulting with clients and a lot of like project management. And so it was like, hey, just grind, like show up every day, put in the work, get it done, and just grind it out. Because there was a lot of things that we had to do on the daily. So that's where that whole phrase, let's say God gym grind, which hey, God first, hit the gym, and whatever life throws at you, just grind it out and overcome it. So God gym grind, that's effectively became my slogan, my mantra, my lifestyle, where whenever I saw myself maybe getting off track, maybe getting distracted, maybe losing my focus, that was just my form of saying, of telling myself, get back on track, get in focus, get back to work. Like, hey, God gym grind. It's like, hey, I'm slacking here, I'm slacking there. Hey, God gym grind. And that's ultimately what helped me keep myself in track. And so through that, I was like, hey, how can we also help? everyone has problems, everyone has difficulties, everyone has trials, and like we all have to grind it out. Right? All of us here, I'm sure we all face different problems, uncertainty situations where we couldn't just throw in the towel and quit. We had to overcome and we had to push through it, and we became better as a person because of it. And so I was like, hey, why not create a brand, like an activewear brand, given I was into fitness that aside from just the people wearing cool clothes and merch, because everyone likes wearing cool clothes at the gym, they feel good, they lift good. But behind that clothing, behind that apparel, a message of empowerment of, let's say, that aspect of pushing through your faith, pushing through and getting the work done. And so that's where I decided to start a clothing brand, G3X Fitness, G3X, given God, Gym, Grind, those three G's. And that's ultimately where it all started there, that wanted to create a brand, a fitness clothing brand where it empowers people who practice their faith, who like the gym and who like that, hustle, that grit, and, empowering them to like, hey, keep pushing forward. Like when you wear G3X Fitness, regardless if you're in the gym or not, or if you're into fitness or not, but just that mindset, that lifestyle behind it. And that's ultimately what I tell people that, hey, beyond the merch, G3X Fitness is not just like a merch, it's also like a lifestyle, living that God Gym Grind lifestyle. And that's where I'm at today. And so, like you were saying with the content, that's ultimately the type of content I try to produce. Not so much, of course, showcasing the different merch and apparel, of course, but at the same time, just more of that lifestyle mentality concept of God Gym Grind.
Sure. Thank you for that, Adriel. In fact, I'd love to sort of almost hand the mic to Josue because Josue, he's a former veteran. He's a big advocate for fitness, physical fitness, and I think mental fitness as well. So I'd love to kind of like find out from Josue, like uh what Adriel said about the physical fitness aspect. Like, what are your thoughts on that, and how does physical fitness, like what importance or significance does physical fitness play in your either daily or just general advice that you give, like your mentees?
Was that question for me, Rajiv, or
Yeah,
for
for you, Josue, yeah.
for me? Well, it's
Unless Robert is a veteran. I'm not sure if Robert is a veteran. If he
no,
is,
I wasn't sure
like,
I mean, like you handed over, then you were phrasing it. I'm like, hey, that's a great question.
it was meant to you, Josue.
That's a
I'm
great
going to let
question,
you,
Adriel.
Josue, I'll let you answer it.
Reinforce. Well, physical fitness it gets you moving, right? It gets everything. It's an energy, so everything starts kind of a momentum where when it becomes a habit as well, it becomes a part of your lifestyle. And when you have that lifestyle, you just have a better life in essence. So that's where physical fitness is such being in the military, it's something you did every day. And you were always looked upon as to what level of fitness you were at. If you ever failed, for instance, a run, you as a leader lost all credibility, all respect, no matter how good you were. So in essence, you were always being tested that you have to display a certain level of fitness, the way you looked in your uniform, and all of this projects a sense of confidence in yourself as well. It's part of that persona. When I put on the uniform, I felt a transformation. I felt like I was Superman just because of what it represented to me. And now that I've left the military, it's still a very important part of my life. Fitness. It's we call it fit to fight. If you're not fit, you can't fight. Bottom line. And if you can't fight, you can't win wars. So if you're going to war and that's what you're as a soldier, that's your whole purpose, prepare for war. And if you go to war to win, you have to be fit. You have to be fit to fight. So
That's
that's
amazing.
why fitness is such an important part of my life. Hope that
That's
answers the question, Rajiv.
You did. And also, I want to kind of toss this to Robert because I know Robert is a health nut. And he's just, I think, like over the past maybe few years, he's kind of gotten into better shape. And I know that he's kind of focused on like personal development and, like making all the areas of life just kind of coalesce better. So, Robert, I kind of want to point it to you and kind of ask you, same question, like what is like physical fitness, like what significance does it have in your life? And if you'd like to kind of, share your thoughts, your point of view on that.
Well, I think that physical fitness is intricately tied with mental fitness
Hmm.
and spiritual fitness. It's all related. You can't separate. And I have like a routine every day, no matter where I am, that puts me in the right frame of mind. I may not have access to a gym in every place that I am. But I'm not particularly a gym nut. Like when I'm in Miami, I like to swim every day. I'm really into water and the effects of that. It's so soothing and it's a great workout. But also I do a very powerful meditation every morning wherever I am. That kind of puts me in the right frame of mind. And listening to Ariel, I did have a couple of questions for him. And I was very impressed with what he said. But Ariel, I was wondering, how do you define fitness?
Robert, so it's Adriel, just as a
It's Adrian, I'm sorry.
Adriel.
Adrian, how do you define fitness? What's your definition?
Oh wow, that's a good question actually. In my case, I would say fitness, initially people might think fitness, I'll say like I know from other aspects when people first hear about G3X, they initially might think fitness like okay, like gym or bodybuilding, powerlifting, which is more of the focus I tend to focus on. But the more as I've been developing the brand and the messaging to reach out to different audiences, I would say for me, fitness anything that can keep you, let's say, both, let's say, mind and body like healthy, or what keeps you like, let's say, pushing forward from a, let's say, physical aspect. So it doesn't always have to be like weightlifting or lifting weights, power or bodybuilding or anything, but it could be, I've had people who just really just enjoy to run. Or really just enjoy, let's say, like Pilates, or let's say yoga, or really just enjoy doing like I've actually had a few people not as common, but let's say something that they like archery or they enjoy hiking. So for me, it's like fitness is like, hey, anything that gets you moving, right? It doesn't always have to be like hardcore lifting weights or anything, but anything that could get you moving kind of keeps your makes your blood flow, your heart rate kind of get pumped up, keeps you active where you're not just sitting all day in the computer or in an office and like you're like sedentary, just stationary there in a sense. And so for me, that's what would be fitness. Anything that really pushes you, that you enjoy, that pushes your body to a healthy lifestyle, active lifestyle, whatever that may mean to you. To me, it's the gym and bodybuilding. To someone else, it could be swimming or it could be running or it could be anything else. But anything of that sort, I would say like, hey, anything of that's definitely for fitness.
Yeah, no, and that's a great answer, but I have a follow-up question. So how does your version of fitness manifest in terms of people's personal relationships? Because, living in Miami, as I'm sure you know, people are into physical fitness. You have a lot of people that go to the gym routinely. But does that mean that they're better at personal relationships necessarily, or they treat people in a certain way that's elevated? Because I don't think the two necessarily follow. So, is there anything in your philosophy or in your program that helps people interact with others in a different way, apart from the physicality of what they're doing?
That's a good question. Actually, that's a really good question. I actually hadn't had anyone ask me that before. And I would say I haven't really thought about it that way in past content or things that I've produced. I would agree with you that just because let's say you are an active person, be it at the gym or anything, doesn't necessarily make you a good person, right? There's sometimes, and I have a podcast myself, the G3X podcast, where I have different guests that I've had. And so within all of those different guests, as they're sharing their fitness journey, one thing I have learned is that exactly. Sometimes a lot of people they use the gym kind of as an outlet for some kind of maybe insecurity they have, be it like appearance, something. So they kind of use the gym as like, let's say that form of security. And so I interpret that as like, hey, if you're like insecure in this aspect, that could lead you to maybe not being that good in relationships, be it personal, be it business, be it friendly, because if you still have that insecurity, then if someone touches some kind of topic or mentions something, be it a social media comment or especially social media comments, me in that more in that social media space, then it triggers that insecurity, which could lead them to lash out, say some type of negative comment or this or that sort, right? And so what I would say to that, and how in my case, how it's like the God gym grind aspect, it's okay, you're hitting the gym, you're putting in the work, getting the work, and then how could you become let's say, better with relationships, be it personal or business, the way I personally see it is how I connect that God first aspect. Because let's say if you're, in your faith, everyone has different beliefs. And of course, I respect everyone's beliefs. But let's say in your faith, if you're putting like God first and really like having him guide you, then my opinion is like you will start realizing yourself, your own spiritual reflection of certain things maybe you would need to like work on, or certain weaknesses that you may have. Be like, hey, you know what? I tend to get very triggered quickly when someone says a negative comment, but hey, I should realize that, social media, they're random strangers on the internet. I shouldn't give value to those comments because they don't know me. Who knows me? The real people around me. So you start reflecting on that and ultimately work on the grind it out to become better at that aspect and not let that control you. And ideally, that's how you start becoming also a better person there too. Hopefully that answered your question. Let me know if that did or not to sound too far stretch or anything.
Yeah, no, I know. I was curious about that because obviously the physicality of exercise is a totally different element than the spirituality of people and what they're going to do with their lives. So I was just wondering what your thoughts are about that separation and how to possibly integrate the two elements in
Yeah.
your program.
I guess my question, following on with Robert, what Robert said is do you have an opportunity in the physical environment, in the gym environment, as you know, anytime that you get a group of people together, it naturally creates a culture, right? So what is the culture of the people you work out with, or that particular gym? And is the prominence or the discussion of faith and God, is that intertwined into the workout, or is it just specifically focusing on the workout? Whereas maybe people in the gym know that your faith and the importance of it and your brand, does that spread out within the area of where you work out?
Okay, great question. I guess I see what you're saying there. Yeah, no, in that case, yeah. When it comes to, let's say, certain people that are like, let's say I'm very much closer with when it comes to the gym, working out together, definitely they're, aware of my faith, my beliefs. And as we're talking, sometimes we talk certain things about that aspect of the faith aspect. And, for me, my main focus is just like that aspect of, let's say, God first. Like, hey, if you're gonna do a decision, like, hey, maybe take some time to pray, ask God to guide you, and ideally you're led in the right direction to make the right decision. And so that's my main focus in that, let's say, the spirituality, just hey, putting God first. Because at the same time with the brand, the way I personally see it is that I know when it comes to, let's say, religion or faith nowadays, sometimes a very, like, let's say, could be a sensitive topic where people can get triggered very easily. And at the same time, I want to be able to reach people that maybe they don't have really a faith background, but just that, let's say, given the, hey, like God Jim grind, like for example, a lot of people that I know that have not, they don't, like, let's say, believe in God or not really faith based or anything, but like they'll hear like a phrase like, hey, God's timing. Like, yeah, facts, like whenever they're like waiting on something, hey, like God's timing. So I know with the God Gym grind aspect, the main idea is like, hey, God first, but at the same time, it's like, even if maybe you're not that deep into faith, let's say, then hey, at least that grind mentality or that gym aspect can still like capture you to at least get you like intrigued by the brand. Now, with the people that I work out with, some of them are faith based and we talk about God, different things of that, others aren't. And in those cases, I'm respectful of that. If we talk about something like, hey, man, as I like to say, hey, God first, if they're talking about some type of problem, some type of situation, what they're going through, like, hey, man, all I can say is like, hey, God first, and, let him guide you, because without him, from my personal experience, I can only speak of my personal experience. I know I found myself in much, let's say, not so much easier spots, but easier to maneuver when I put God first versus when I was trying to figure it all on my own and had like, still same difficulties, but it's just having that aspect of, hey, God's like guiding me, then it makes it like go through that problem. In a sense, you have like that faith, like, hey, God's going to help me through this problem versus you just trying to figure it out all on your own. And so that's usually what I mention to those people when I'm working out, if they're not into that faith background. And then oftentimes, we'll focus straight on the workout, talking about the different workouts or exercises that we're doing, and like get right into it. So that's how I, let's say, in a sense, balance it, if you want to call it like that, when it comes to like the different people I surround myself with when I'm talking about it. But I always like to mention at least, hey, God first, and let them interpret it how they might want to, and then taking it from there.
It
Awesome.
sounds like you're leading by example. You're putting in the work. You're letting your actions speak for themselves. The way that you live your life it represents that example that people can pick up on. And I think that's the best way to do things, right? Is to just let people see for themselves. So I think that's awesome. My other question is, if you're, let's say, not a gym person,
In
or
fact, Josue, before you just ask that question, I just wanted to kind of like sort of respond to what Robert said and also to what Adriel said about like Robert's earlier question about working out and relationships, because you don't always maybe see that dotted line or even straight line between working out, relationships, and faith, because I think like they're all like intertwined and related to a degree. It's almost like, and this is not my experience that I'm talking about. It's more so I hear athletes talking about a 2% increment, and how that 2% increment is kind of like, because they've already achieved so much, what they're really looking for is a 2% increment to kind of really get them to the next level. So the way that I kind of correlate that with what Adriel just said is about, so let's say if you kind of go to the gym and you're working out on your physical self, maybe that act of developing your physical self leads you to more development on the mental self, which then leads to a bigger potential or a bigger possibility of being able to be open to further development on the spiritual side, which then could in turn lead to further development on the relationship side. Because based on what Adriel said, if let's say your physical self is developing, okay, your mental self is developing, your spiritual self is developing, surely after the spiritual self is developed, that should have some sort of a correlation with how that impacts how do you interact with the outside world, and how you interact with other people, and what are those relationships looking like. So I think they sort of are in a way correlated, but also have a slight domino effect where one influences the other. And it's like an ongoing process, right? Because you don't go to the gym just once and then one and done. You're going to the gym every single day. You're learning every single day. You're developing your mind every single day. You're developing your faith every single day. And hopefully that progressive kind of development that's happening is hopefully over time going to kind of manifest in maybe improved relationships, maybe deeper relationships, maybe better friendships, maybe more authentic versions of whatever those relationships are. So I like, Adriel's philosophy of the whole God first thing, and kind of just, I guess, stopping and I mean, it sort of relates to that, I guess, that bumper sticker that you might have seen on the road, what would Jesus do kind of thing. Maybe you've seen it. And certainly in more states than others. I saw a lot of it when I was in Tennessee. But so I'm thinking that if you can step back from whatever you're doing in the busyness of life and just present yourself with that question, what would Jesus do? God first. I think that just the act of stopping rather than just being an autopilot every day, I think is something that kind of allows for a very, it allows for some level of development and change to occur. So I just thought that what Robert said and what Adriel said made a really good point. And now obviously I interrupted your flow, but Josue, please go ahead and ask your question.
I was just gonna say it really is a recipe, right? It's the recipe you use, because if you could become where you're very good at being in great shape, working out, going to the gym, but become and then have results on social media and become very self-centered, where that feeds that ego, right? You're off balance because you're like, okay, I'm great, I look great, people love me, they love that attention, and you can get lost in that and become detached in the physical world and in your relationship with other people, because it becomes a facade, so to speak. And I think that's part of what like Robert was maybe kind of leaning toward, where you could be in the gym doing all these great things, but it's all self-serving, and the way that you interact with people is totally remote from having true spiritual relationships, connections, engaging, kindness, these types of things.
Right. Josue, let me just, add to that. I think that's exactly what I was trying to get to. There are a lot of people that I see in the gym, at least where I am, that don't even acknowledge the other people that are around them. And they just are into their own physicality, making themselves look great. And on a certain level, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to do that. But what you're really referring to is that a lot of people use the ego to get boosted by this stuff, and they get disconnected from their soul. So, Adriel, what we're really about in this podcast is trying to get people to have an integrated wholeness about and to understand the more of the varieties of what constitutes wellness in our world right now. And I just want to let you know that that's why we're asking these kind of questions, because we're really into cultivating an integrated form of wellness for people that could help them thrive in today's new reality. Do you have any comments about that, Adriel?
No, I love it because, as the more as all of us were talking, and honestly, your question has still been resonating in the back of my mind. Like, wow, that was a really, really good question, right? And so, building on top of that, as each one of us was talking about, got me more thinking that, yeah, I've seen it myself in certain people that I follow that I've seen, let's say, their growth. I remember there's certain people I followed, like under 1,000 followers, under 500 followers when I first started following them. And then, they blew up on Instagram, 50,000 followers, 80,000 followers, etc. And you've seen, I've personally seen as they grow, certain things, they are maybe more hesitant to post or not post because they have now all of a sudden this pressure of like, oh, what if I start getting all of these types of comments or this? And like you were saying there, like you kind of lose your sense of reality because hey, if it's real to you, this is my personal opinion. I'm a big Gary Vee fan and a big Alex Hormozy fan, so a lot of their content has influenced also my way of thinking and viewing things. So it's also like, hey, if it's true to you and it provides value to others, some type of inspiration, something you did that you experienced that you think could help others through their fitness journey or spiritual journey, or let's say entrepreneurship journey and things of that sort. Why wouldn't you want to post it regardless of any negative feedback? Because at the end of the day, if those people are posting, let's say, negative feedback, then how broken could that person be to just be doing hate comments to some other stranger on the internet, right? And that really hit me because even myself, I'll be totally transparent, with the whole God Gym grind aspect. There were times, especially when I was first starting out, that I was hesitant with certain type of, let's say, God themed posts or certain things of that. Because like, hey, what if there's some kind of, let's say, backlash? But I'm like, hey, what does it matter? I mean, people are entitled to their opinions. I personally will find the audience that resonate with the message of the brand by posting that content. The ones who hate, okay, hey, nothing against you, to each their own. Clearly, you guys aren't my audience, but then still be real to yourself, what's true to you, your values, your principles, and then those you'll end up finding the right people along the way. And the ones that don't, they'll do hate comments here and then they just fall to the wayside because the algorithm doesn't show your content to them ever again, or whatever the case may be. And with respect to what Rajiv was saying, also on the whole, like your like spiritual and connection with your fitness, the more I started thinking about that, and it's true because let's say, in my opinion as well, which I've talked about in a couple in past content that I posted, is of course as you start hitting the gym, you start developing some kind of discipline, right? Of like, regardless if you like it or not, you go to the gym, you put in the work, etc. And I've personally seen that myself, how that level of discipline evolves, has, let's say, leaked, if that's the correct word, or transferred to other aspects of my life too, of that level of discipline, which I think could also apply for relationships too, when done the right way. Like, hey, if you're disciplined of like always at this time going to the gym, or this time, taking your protein shake, or you're tracking your macros, then you can have that same discipline in other aspect. Let's say like in a relationship of maybe maintaining that communication with your spouse, or let's say having, specific times to, let's say, just as you dedicate specific time to the gym, then, try to have that level of discipline to track to like dedicate to the gym, to also like spend time with your kids or your spouse or things of that sort. And like having that level of discipline too, which I think leads to other aspects in life, which also provides benefits too.
Yeah, in fact, Adriel, I just wanted to comment real quick about like what you said, like just stay true to your message. And this is something that I've kind of like, it took me a while to sort of arrive at the whole Assassins for Hire thing. So, I mean, I understand that Assassins for hire is like a polarizing message, given the fact that in New York there actually was a freaking assassin. They did take out the healthcare CEO or whatever. So I get that. But the point is, like, to your point, Adriel, it's like when that message is shown, there are a certain amount of people that will lean in and be like, tell me more. And there are other people that will backward and say, well, where's the exit? So it's like, and I think that is like very telling, because the people that are drawn to you will be drawn to you. And the people that aren't just won't. And then they aren't your people in any case. So, and so I guess the question about like whether, and obviously, sure, you got to read the room and you don't want to be just crazy talk all the time. I mean, that's not the point. But the point is to sort of obviously be memorable, be attention grabbing, but memorable in obviously the right context and in what you're trying to do. So I totally agree with you on the whole integrity of kind of like keep staying true to your message, and your people will find you, eventually. And I think if you're just consistent, they will discover the content at some point and then find their way to you. And I think that's kind of like a good approach. I think this, interestingly enough, this reminds me of the conversation that I had with Robert, which was also something to that effect, which is, hey, I don't like labels. I don't want to be called whatever. I'm just gonna speak my mind and give my thought. And sure, it may not appeal to a certain amount of people that want that packaged in a box type stuff, but maybe it'll appeal to someone else. And maybe that's my audience, So I kind of like get sort of like the logic of that, and it certainly is bold. And yeah. So I just wanted to like comment on that and sort of say that I really agreed with that. And Robert, you're smiling, so I'm guessing you have something to add.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, I'm not going to go further to try and dissect the faith thing that everyone's talking about, because I'll just say this, that not everybody looks to external sources for God, and the concept of faith is sort of a very particular, it connotes in my mind a very particular way of looking at God, which is not necessarily the way a lot of people pursue their spirituality. I just wanted to make that distinction. But apart from that, Adriel, could you tell us a little bit about the lifestyle that goes along with the working out that you've developed?
Sure, yeah, say definitely. I mean, with me specifically, when you say like the whole like God gym grind lifestyle, or just more like on the fitness aspect to it, or like
Well,
routine wise.
the God give grind lifestyle.
Okay, perfect, for sure. So for me, the way I apply it, and I always try, I always like, even let's say self-analyze myself, that whatever I post through socials and the messaging is like things that I'm living, right? To make it real, to make it authentic. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything, right? It's like, what have I done that could help others inspire? So in my case, like kind of like, let's say if you want to go through like a daily routine of mine, which is pretty consistent. I'm a very mechanical person, I call myself, in the sense to do the same things pretty much every day. So I'll start off in the morning, certain like little morning chores, and like around the house, walk my dog, etc. Then from there, I'll have some time, let's say, as people might call it, let's say I've spent some time to like read my Bible, like a couple of chapters. I like reading Proverbs a lot just because of all the wisdom there in that. So read some Bible verses, reflect on that. Afterwards, from there's a little time that I personally dedicate to like prayer, just to like, okay, hey God, it's a new day. What's expected for this day, whatever problems or challenges may arise. Hey, give me the wisdom to handle it. Give me the grace to say the right things if it's with working with people, whatever the case may be. That kind of gets like my morning going. From there, then, start working on certain things, on the business, checking like, let's say Shopify, any orders that maybe need to ship out a package, any changes to the website or any bugs, right? Or just, emails, etc. Working on that. Usually towards the middle of the day is when I start going to the gym, like around like 1-ish, around that time. I usually will go to the gym, like maybe like 2 hours or so, depending on what I'm doing. Try to film some content as I'm working out. Sometimes I'll do certain live streams as I'm at the gym, just to like connect with the audience, like through TikTok, etc. And then from there, once I come back, if there is any content that I recorded for that specific day, edit that content, schedule them out. If there's any podcasts that are maybe scheduled to be recorded later that day, tweak work on that aspect. and then just continue with, let's say, that grind of like, okay, anything else with the business, any other changes to the website, any other types of, let's say, ideas for videos to like get creative with, let's say, either the merch or some messaging that I want to share, or just something like a little motivational that I just want to put as a story. And that's kind of like the process of every day. So there are times that I'm like, hey, I experienced this, whatever that may be it at the gym. I learned something new, some new exercise at the gym, want to share with the audience. Or maybe I read this verse that specific day. A lot of times I read a specific verse for that day. I'm like, wow, this really hit me. I can see how I can apply this in my life. And then I'll do some kind of reel sharing that verse, like, hey guys, so I was just reading this, check this out. This is another way of like, hey, that God gym grind lifestyle. So keep it up and things of that sort. But that's kind of like on my day-to-day basis, in the sense that like morning routine, the gym routine, and the grind, which is kind of spread out throughout the day, working on the business, or checking creating content, or scheduling out content, or things of that sort. So that's pretty much I guess you can say, that daily routine of mine.
Okay. And I just have a follow-up question or two. So do you take the weekend off, or you do this on the weekend as well?
Personally, yes, it's for me even weekends, and that's just a little habit of mine. You could call me like a little workaholic. I like working. I enjoy the process of like doing something, just always working on something. If I'm not doing something over the weekends, I feel like I'm like wasting time, and I could be like, hey, versus just sitting here watching a Netflix show. Nothing wrong with Netflix, of course, but like I could maybe just go on a live on TikTok and try to create more brand awareness and connect with new people through TikTok, and maybe generate some sales through TikTok shop, etc. And that aspect, or versus just sitting down, I could maybe be editing a video of some, because I have like notes of a bunch of videos. Oh, hey, I want to work on these different videos when I have some more time. Like, hey, let me work on that instead. So I personally, yeah, I'm like a 7-day type of person. Even in my old job, it was like my old job was like a business my friend started, like a college friend. So we were working together. And so kind of like that same like entrepreneur type style, that was like a 24/7 grind. I would be going to sleep sometimes 2, 3 in the morning working on stuff. Then he would be waking up around that time and he would continue. And then it was kind of like that back and forth. So that kind of habit just stuck with me even as I started G3X Fitness. So it's definitely a 7-day thing for me.
And do you have any need to sort of balance that out? And if so, do you have a wellness routine to balance it out?
Great question. So for me, I would say, since I enjoy the process, like that operating, like that day-to-day operating and running it for now, it's kind of like as a solopreneur, I enjoy it. Now, of course, there may be times where maybe it's a little late, 9 p.m., and maybe the family's here. All right, let me just chill with the family for a bit, like maybe watch a little show with them or so forth. So I could say that's kind of like, if you want to call it that, my balance in a sense. But my family is also very supportive of what I do, and they're like, hey, you're enjoying it, so who are we to stop you? So they're very supportive of that aspect. They don't see it as a negative. And some of my other friends that I have too, they're also in that entrepreneurship route. So that circle, as you say, having your circle who you're surrounding yourself with also helps. That a lot of some of my other friends have their own businesses here locally in Miami. They're also on the grind. They're also like on the daily, just trying to find, just find that next opportunity and just put in the work. And so for me, my balance, if you want to call it that, is doing this on the daily. I find that that's what I enjoy. That's what I have like enjoyment in. So it's pretty much what I do on the daily. And for me, the way I see it is like, hey, to each their own, of course, but I always like to focus on like, hey, everyone has different goals and priorities, right? And so whatever gets you closer to that goal, then do that. Otherwise, then if it doesn't get you closer to your goals, why bother doing it? That's just my way of seeing things. And so it's like, hey, my goals is to keep growing G3X Fitness, keep spreading the messaging of God Gym Grind, keep growing the brand, the apparel, the ambassadors representing the brand ambassadors and so forth. And so whatever thing that I can do each and every day that gets me closer to that, just work on that, give my focus on that, and anything else kind of goes to the side because doesn't get me closer to my priority or goals, and then move on that. Now, of course, that doesn't mean I won't go out with the family to grab an ice cream, or stuff like that, so there's still, of course, that balance. But that's kind of like almost my way of filtering what to do versus not to do. Does it get me closer or not to my goals? But then at the same time, I was like, hey, okay, it's sometimes let's spend some time with the family. That's still the enjoyment of life. Because at the end of the day, what good is having a 6-figure, 8-figure, 10-figure company if all of a sudden, let's say my parents are both super sick and something happens tomorrow, right? Like the company won't really matter versus like those day-to-day family moments. So those still like that still is more valuable to me. But aside from that, it's pretty much does it get me closer to my goals or not? And then that's like my filter of what to do versus not to do. And since I enjoy it, that's my balance of just doing whatever gets me closer to the goals and just trying to always push forward to that.
Thanks. That's perfect. Guys, we're getting close to the end of the podcast. Do you have any other questions for him?
I would just ask one last question, Adriel. What would you contribute as being the source that gives you this work ethic, this goal-oriented mindset to get out there and do the grind?
Well, I would say honestly for my family. I mean, I've seen, my parents were, let's say, the typical immigrant story. They came here. I mean, my family's from Nicaragua, so they came here like 30 plus years ago to the States with like nothing. And then seeing like certain, like, let's say financial struggles of my parents and certain things, they would always do their best to, like, I could say through all the years, we always had food on the table, right? There was never a day we didn't go like to sleep without eating, but I would see like the efforts and so forth. And at the same time, it's like, hey, let's create, I would love to, let's say, to pay them back. My mom and dad have done so much more for me. So it's like through this brand, it's like, hey, spreading a positive message to impact others. And then ideally be able to grow this business to the point that, hey, you know what, mom, dad, like enjoy now. It's your time to rest. And, thank you for everything that you've done for me all these years. Because the way they raised me, the values and principles they put in me, I think that's ultimately a big reason why I'm here today because they kept me on track. A lot of times I would lose focus with friends and distractions, video games. They'd be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you could be doing something better. So they really kept me in track. And I think that has ultimately led me to where I'm at now. Whereas if it wasn't for them, of course, God first always, who gave me my parents at the end of the day. I didn't choose my parents, right? And so I think it's because of them that what they instilled in me is what keeps me going on the day to day, and just as a way of like being able to ideally pay them back. And hey, thank you, which thank you will never be enough for everything they've done, but as close as I can to it.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, that's a good reason. Sharing.
Rajiv, what about you? Any further comments?
No, so I unfortunately have to go to an in-person events that I have to sort of rush out to. But obviously, Adriel is such an impressive entrepreneur and human that we could speak to him for hours and hours. But yeah, I think this has been a tremendous conversation. It has given our listeners a very diverse set of perspectives and something to kind of act on, because I'm sure there's something in this conversation, either based on what Adriel shared, what Josue shared, what I said, what you shared, Robert, that would kind of give enough of a perspective on someone to act on and then take action, whether it's something about fitness, something about mindset, something about spirituality, something about, whatever relationships, or something, anything that will kind of just make you stop and think for like 2 seconds is, I think that's a win. And if we were successful in doing that to our listeners, for our listeners, then that's a win. So Adriel, I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for stepping away from your busy packed schedule, because he's been on many podcasts, and I'm sure he's going to rush to another podcast after this. But thank you for accepting my invitation, and thank you for jumping on. And we wish you and G3X Fitness all the very best. And maybe you and Robert should hang out at some point since you're both in Miami.
Definitely not. And I appreciate you guys for having me. And for sure, that'll be great, Robert. I love the question. I'm sure we could talk even more in person. We could get deep into it. So I would love that.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely, man. That sounds great. Thank you again for appearing on the podcast, and have a great evening. And the same to everybody, to Josue and Rajiv. Have a great evening. It's beginning of the weekend. Let's enjoy it. Huh?
Sounds good. We can
All right.
Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.